Hi, I'm Daryl, a sustainable landscape designer and the founder of Yard Farmer, a sustainable landscape design studio based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Today we're going to be talking about vegetables, essentially whether you should grow them in the ground or in a raised bed and what works best for your yard, your budget, and your goals. If you're considering starting a backyard vegetable garden, you might be wondering whether you should grow vegetables in the ground or in a raised bed. And there's no wrong answer, but there might be a wrong answer for your yard specifically. So we're going to be walking through the pros and cons of each today. Regardless of what you decide, the biggest input I have as a landscape designer is make your garden a place, no matter what. Whether you're growing in the ground or in raised beds, I would much rather see the vegetable garden as a section of your yard, sort of a room in the floor plan, rather than just some beds shoved up against a fence in the back corner. That's already going to make the garden feel much more grounded and much more like a place you're going to enjoy being, rather than just some mess in the corner kind of ruining the vibe of your overall landscape design. Once you know where your veggie garden is going to go, next you have to decide if you want to grow in the ground or in raised beds. There are going to be a number of constraints that are going to make this decision for you, so think of it like a checklist that we'll walk through together. We're going to start with in-ground first. A major pro to growing vegetables in the ground is cost. It is expensive to build raised beds, at least ones that look pretty nice, and also expensive to fill them with potting soil. And you can't really use native soil, or at least 100% native soil in a raised bed, because it will solidify and turn into a brick in there. So you're going to need to add drainage mediums and things to keep air and porosity in that soil. Whereas in the ground, all we need to do is amend your existing soil, which is going to save you a lot of money overall. But the major constraint here is the quality of your existing soil, as well as the amount of time you want to commit to remediating it. If you want to grow vegetables this season, but your existing soil is nutrient deprived or heavily compacted, if you have trouble getting a shovel into it, essentially, it's going to be pretty difficult to get that ready to go, at least for a really high yielding, healthy harvest, and you might be better suited just committing to raised beds. However, if you have time and energy to commit to remediating your soil, there is an additional benefit to growing in ground, which is that the vegetables and the roots themselves will be much more insulated. So your vegetables will actually need less water to stay healthy. Clay soils specifically do a good job of holding onto water, and they also have a higher CEC, that stands for cation exchange capacity. That sounds very nerdy. Essentially, it means the ability to transfer nutrients from the soil into the plants. Sandy soil, on the other hand, doesn't have a very good CEC and also drains water really quickly. So if your soil lends itself to being a little more clay, you're better suited to growing directly in the ground, although we might need to amend your soil to make it suitable for plants to have room to grow. Like, we need to break up the soil and make it easy for roots to take purchase there. But sandy soil, while it's easier to get plants in the ground, it's going to be a lot harder for those plants to hold on to nutrients as well as water. And I think you're better suited for raised beds overall. When you're growing vegetables in the ground, you are governed by your existing soil conditions. And if it is heavily compacted or heavy clay, we're going to need to do some kind of amending to make it suitable to grow things in. If you need to grow vegetables this year in the ground, it is likely you will need to till your soil. However, I'm a huge fan of no-till gardening. I think it's better overall for the overall health of your soil ecology, your vegetables, your yard at large. However, it's very hard for me to look someone in the eyes if they've got heavily compacted clay soil and tell them they could start immediately on a no-till journey. Your soil needs to be worth saving before we preserve it with a no-till method. That being said, if you have time, and this is something I've done personally in my own side yard, which I'm planting a food forest in this year, you can put organic matter on that now and let nature do its thing for a year or 2 or 3. In my case, it might be going on 5 years. Get wood chips, get leaves, get compost down on that soil. Let rain and you could manually water it, for example. Let the water carry those nutrients down. Let the earthworms come up and grab that compost and pull it down. And you might find yourself with a much more workable planting area a couple of years down the line. But a lot of people, when they want to start hobby gardening in their own backyards, they're not playing that long of a game. And again, that's what brings us over to raised beds as a suitable option. The last thing that could be a pro or a con for growing vegetables in the ground is aesthetics. Some people really like the more agricultural look of having rows planted in the ground that you walk between to garden. Other people really like the aesthetics of clean cedar beds or brick or stone beds. It really just depends on your budget and how you want it to look.
I just want to throw one thing in, Daryl. What if you're really old and you have a bad back?
Raised beds.
Thank you. Not speaking as an old person.
Yeah, if you have mobility issues, then you're going to want to explore even higher raised beds than one might expect, up at 2, 3, or 4 feet tall, so that you can stand upright while gardening. You could look into doing patio boxes, ones that don't even touch the floor. That's up to you to decide. So in summary, if you're trying to veggie garden on as little of a budget as possible, or if you have the time or the energy and resources to amend your soil, growing in ground is probably the right decision for you. The other option, of course, is raised beds, and we love them because it's fast and they're pretty. And honestly, that could be reason enough to just go the raised bed route, especially if aesthetics are important to you in your yard. Not everybody is going to be building a working farm in their backyard. You might just want to grow some onions and peppers and tomatoes, and having a couple of cedar raised beds or some other material that you choose if you wanted to do something fancy with brick or what have you, so that it still matches the aesthetic of your overall yard. The other major pro is, of course, that you can control the amount of nutrients and the workability of your soil much more actively than if you're growing in your native soil. Most people import potting soil, coco coir, other drainage mediums, or they buy a pre-mixed raised bed mix to add. The con is that dirt, in this case, is not dirt cheap. It is weirdly expensive, and you will likely spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars both on the beds themselves and then filling those beds with the appropriate soil mediums. You can, of course, mix your native soil in to help offset that cost, and I do in fact recommend it because your native soil has a lot of microbial activity and interesting things going on that will help with the overall health of your plants. However, if you just threw a bunch of your native dirt into those beds, it's going to just turn into a solid block, and those little baby roots of those tiny little vegetable starts are just not going to make it. Like I said before, the actual raised beds themselves are going to be one of the biggest investments for this project, and you don't necessarily have to invest in the fanciest cedar or redwood beds. However, choosing a non-chemically treated wood that is naturally rot resistant like cedar or redwood is the way to go if you want those beds to last a long time. But I've seen people do horse troughs, I've seen people do file cabinets. There is a way to still do this on a budget, but again, you might be sacrificing aesthetics in order to just have your hands in the dirt and grow things, which I fully support. I just want you to be aware of the trade-off that you're making. If you do want the classic look of a cedar raised bed, but you don't want to spend cedar raised bed money, we do have plans on our website for cedar raised beds that use fence pickets. They're a lot thinner than a traditional dimensional lumber, and therefore the cost significantly cheaper, but you still get that rot resistant lumber that's going to stand up to several years of use. There could be situations where raised beds really are the only way to go, and that's if you have very sandy soil. I'm looking at you, people in Texas, people in Florida. If your soil is really sandy and it is difficult to keep any water in there at all, you're likely just going to need to be building up. This also goes for folks who live in really humid climates, and this does often overlap with people who have really sandy soil. There's a lot of geographical and climate relation there. If your soil breaks down really fast, if you put down wood mulch and it is broken down in a single season, you're likely going to need to grow veggies in raised beds so that you can continually top up and add more organic matter. I know someone in North Carolina who was trying to compost, and it was truly breaking down so fast that there was just nothing ever in the pile. It just looks like flat dirt. And so a raised bed helps you really get content there so that you have something to grow in and something to hold on to the water. Another major soil constraint that could influence whether you're growing in ground or in a raised bed is if you have any heavy metals or other toxins in your soil. And if you live in a highly urban environment, this might be a little more likely than you might expect. Or if you live in an older home with lead pipes, this might be a little more likely. You are going to want to be growing in a raised bed if you have lead or other heavy metals or other toxins present in your soil. And if you're not sure if you do, I highly recommend doing a special soil test that will tell you. That way you can keep your vegetables up off the ground more and keep those toxins out of your food. Now, if you have toxins or heavy metals in your soil and you cannot grow in raised beds, the main thing that you're going to want to avoid growing completely are leafy greens, broccoli, root vegetables, things that don't fruit. Essentially vegetables proper, because tomatoes and eggplants and so on, those are actually fruit. We generally understand that toxins are stored in the biomass, in the leafing parts of the plant, not the fruiting parts of the plant. So you are more safe eating a tomato or an eggplant or a peach or a service berry than you are eating spinach, for example. This isn't related to raised beds, but I'll just throw this in there. I don't use rainwater collected off of my asphalt shingle roof to grow leafy greens or root vegetables or anything that's going to store those toxins. I send that to my fruiting plants or my non-edible landscaping.
One of the questions that I have as somebody who has dabbled in gardening, is there a difference between what you can grow on the ground and what you can grow in a raised bed, or is it just the same stuff?
It's generally the same stuff except for that lead conversation that we had. Like if you're growing in the ground but you know that your soil's a little questionable, I'd recommend you move those leafy greens, root vegetables into a raised bed, and maybe even one that does not touch the soil at all, like one that's raised up off of the ground. As far as what you're growing in a raised bed versus in the ground, I'd say the main difference is how much digging do you want to do at the end of the day? Because I like growing potatoes in bags, so I can just dump the bag into a wheelbarrow and grab the potatoes. Whereas if you're growing potatoes the good old-fashioned way in the ground, that's a lot of digging at the end. But no, no difference.
So sometimes you see it looks like a garden bed, but it's on legs, like it's on a table. Is that still a raised bed?
Yeah, it's just different.
It's just taller, so you can get to it easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
For you, Lee. For your niece.
For
your back. I just
back.
called him old.
And you mentioned earlier, you said things like even like old watering troughs.
Yeah, like from Tractor Supply. People use like horse troughs, pig watering troughs. I think they even sell them now because it became so popular where it doesn't even have a bottom and you're just essentially buying like a metal collar that you place down and fill with dirt.
And anybody who follows you on social media like TikTok or Instagram knows of your filing cabinet planter that you made last year. How did that work out?
Yeah, it worked out really well actually. I planted native pollinator plants in it and the yarrow took off like crazy, and there's some blue flax in there as well. I'm going to be doing some follow-up videos soon.
Cool. And we also have a short video that we did on it's almost 2 years ago about using planter, almost like planter container tubs for patio gardening, and you could do the same thing with vegetables.
Yeah, you could totally grow vegetables. The main thing is, and this is important for people who are deciding raised bed versus in-ground too, the main thing is if you are growing up off of the ground, it's going to need more water more often than if you're planting in the ground. And so those pollinator plants that I planted on our patio, they're really drought tolerant plants, yarrow and penstemon and what have you, but I'm still watering them about twice as often as the yarrow and penstemon that I have growing in the ground.
Then when it comes to raised beds, do you have to use different considerations for drip irrigation, or does it work exactly the same as it would be with in-ground?
Yeah, really great question. Same general idea, just more often. I typically have veggie gardens on a different zone as it is. You're definitely going to want that split down the middle into two zones. If you have some veggies grown in the ground and some grown in a raised bed, you're probably going to be watering the raised bed one 50% or more often.
Okay, last question. Last question. Into the growing season, we're looking at a late October, early November. What do we do with these garden beds, whether they're raised or in ground?
You leave them.
You just leave them.
You leave them. Now, that's going to bring us to a whole other conversation about cover cropping. I like raised beds to be cover cropped so that roots can stay alive, and that mycorrhizal fungi, if you're curious, just means the fungi that is friends with roots, and they're friends and they hang out together, and you need both for them to exist. And so if all of the roots are dead, the mycorrhizal fungi is going to get less and less. It's going to deplete more and more until there's none left, and you're basically starting from scratch in the spring. So having living plant roots alive is going to make a huge difference. That being said, living plant root and a dormant perennial plant root, similar energy, and it will help jumpstart mycorrhizal activity again, even if you just had some perennials growing. So planting things like strawberries or rhubarb or perennial herbs in your veggie beds that you just work around with all of your annual plantings will help keep that soil activity alive. And in lieu of that, you can do a cover crop. The reason I say leave it, meaning don't just sow a cover crop, is because in Utah specifically, which is where I am and where a lot of my clients are, we don't have a fall. We really don't have a fall.
Yeah, we go from 90 to winter.
It's, you have a week where you pretend and you like get a latte with pumpkin flavoring and you put a scarf on and then it's winter after that.
Yeah.
And so there's not really a lot of time for you to pull tomatoes out, sow a cover crop, have that ready to go before frost, and then have that survive. In fact, in Utah, you're harvesting tomatoes until the day of your first frost.
Seems like it.
So what I like to do is find a cover crop that's actually more of like a micro clover, a low growing bush beans. I mean, something that's going to fill in the bottom that you can just plant your tomatoes into. So I'm using right now purple prairie clover, which is a native clover, in my veggie beds as a living mulch. And then I'm not being shy about just digging a hole straight into that clover and getting my tomato starts in there.
Cool. So is it okay before you put your cover crop down? We know we want to keep the roots in the ground because that's really good for the mycorrhizal activity. is it okay to chop and drop the stuff that's on top because you're keeping the roots safe, and that's good. But then you're kind of cutting down the stuff that's maybe getting ugly on top.
Yeah, so you can chop and drop in the spring when you want to plant your new stuff in, but let your cover crop just be cover crop. The reason in Utah it's a little different because we don't have the fall.
Right.
And so in a traditional climate, let's say Michigan, you would be done growing tomatoes and then you would sow a cover crop and then that would just live in your beds all winter long, and then you would chop and drop in the spring prior to planting out your new tomatoes. In Utah, it doesn't really work. So the tomatoes are still in the ground and you're sowing your cover crop around the tomatoes. You could do this in the spring with the tomato starts, or you could do this in like June, July, August, as long as there's enough time to get it germinated before frost. You want it germinated like 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead of the frost so that they don't just die as these tiny little baby seedlings.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Hopefully you found this helpful on deciding whether you should grow your veggies in ground or in a raised bed. If you need help workshopping your individual soil conditions a little more, or finding that location for your garden in your yard, we do landscaping consults virtually, and you can find that information on my website, yardfarmer.co. Bye!